Hey everybody, welcome to Ology's WireSide Chats. I'm your host, Neil Terraciano. I have a guest with me today, Doug Hazelman from VMware. Happens to be here for a training that he did.
I'm from Veeam.
Did I just say VMware?
You said
I'm sorry.
VMware. So
Doug Hazelman from Veeam. At least I didn't call you Jimmy Hazelnut.
Oh, hey.
So I appreciate you making it out here. Doug's here to help us with some training for our solutions architects and a few of our customers. Go over some of the more technical aspects of Veeam, as well as some of the SQL focus or SQL focused on some of the features that are there. It's a very robust platform. And as a matter of fact, that's why we chose to do this one installment on WireSide. Whole careers are made out of Veeam. Veeam has a very deep set of buttons that you can push in your disaster recovery environment. So I felt that maybe bringing Doug over here to help us kind of understand some of the deeper recesses of Veeam would be something that would be greatly valuable to the audience. So Doug, thank you very much. I really appreciate you making it out here. So if we can start right off. Can you tell me a little bit about your background and how you ended up here?
Yeah, sure. So I've been with Veeam for 7 years, so that makes me an old timer. I don't know what that is in dog years, but it's a lot. And part of what made me come to Veeam was the fact that I had worked with the founders previously at another company, Alita Software. So basically from '99 to 2004, we worked in that company, and then sold that company, and then a couple years later they're like, hey, we're starting up another company, and it was like, I'm like, where do I sign up? I wanted a chance to be part of that success again. I knew what they could do. They knew what we could do in terms of the people that they brought on at the beginning. So it was just a tremendous opportunity. And when I look at where we've come in the last 7 years, it's absolutely blows my mind in terms of how fast we've grown and just what we're doing out in the market.
Yeah, many of us didn't really know about Veeam for quite, until somewhat recently. A long time in IT years, right? 7 years is almost 100 years in IT years, right? So that's exciting. Can you tell us a little bit about Veeam's history, right? So were you there day one, or did you kind of come in after things kind of got started, or?
Well, I was basically after things had gotten started off a little bit. It's interesting. Veeam actually started with a free product. So the first product that Veeam ever produced was called Fast SCP. And if you're a VMware administrator back in the 2006-2007 years, you probably definitely know that name because it kind of became the de facto tool for every VMware administrator to have this, because it allowed them to move these files around very easily through a Windows interface. It was fast, hence the name Fast SCP, but it was free. And part of what we did with that is we released this free tool, and we knew it was going to be valuable. But we also got feedback, right? We also then use that to say, what other kinds of issues are you having in your virtual infrastructure? What else would you like to see? What other types of tools and these types of things, would you like to have? And that's really where our early monitoring and reporting came from. But then the big one was backup and disaster recovery in Veeam Backup and Replication, version 1 that actually launched in February 2008.
Wow, that is a long time ago. That is a long time ago. So a lot of Veeam's success, obviously, is centered around the shift to virtualization. Right? So if anybody knows anything about Ology, Ology is a big player in the virtualization world, both in server virtualization and in desktop virtualization. So if I may, I want to just kind of progress. But part of the reason why we wanted to do this was because of the fact that so many people know so little about all the features that exist inside of Veeam, and you as my witness, even many Veeam customers don't realize the kind of features they have at their fingertips, right? So what would you say maybe some of the most missed feature sets, or maybe some of the misconceptions that are associated with Veeam?
Yeah, it's kind of being a victim of our own success in some ways. But I tell people that when you can download Veeam Backup and Replication and have it installed and doing backups in an afternoon, right? I mean, it doesn't require that much. You can do everything with one server initially. Boom, you download it, you get it started. But we design it that way. So we design it so that from a trial perspective, you download it. We've got all the options set for you to make that experience great. So that when you boom, it just works, right? And that's become part of our logo, and that's part of why, is because people were downloading it, installing it, and it just worked, right? And they're not used to software doing that.
Just working.
It's just working.
Right.
But I say a victim of our own success because it just works, so they just leave it. And they don't go in and explore into the intricacies and all the other options that are there. Now, luckily, we have partners like Balaji that can help customers, explore those options and understand, what the true power is, right? So, maybe it's, their backups are taking a long time because they only have one proxy. Well, deploy another proxy, maybe two, and then, start distributing that backup load. Now, guess what? You've taken, a 5-hour backup window and you've shrunk it down into 45 minutes, right? That's a huge value. Doesn't require you really to purchase anything additional, no additional licenses from Veeam or anything like that. It's just setting it up in a way and then looking at the options, right? So, from storage options that we have, in terms are you going to be working with a deduplication appliance and those types of things to, applications and, what applications do you have in the environment and are you backing those up in the right way and, do you have the right settings set for your log truncation, those types of things, and then do you even know how to recover, right? And then different options from probably the one thing that's I would say that a lot of people don't necessarily install, and even one of our customers today mentioned it was Enterprise Manager, and we're showing Enterprise Manager.
Yeah, I remember that.
The web interface, that you can do all sorts of things to control Veeam backup and replication, and that's always like the last thing that gets installed if it gets installed at all. But there's like so much that you can do there, and it's an area where you can actually start to give end users and application owners access to go in and start doing things without having to, give them the keys to the castle, so to speak. So, there's I don't know, there's just so much.
You could go on, right?
I could go on forever.
That's the point of this, right? Is there are so many things that you can do without getting harassed with additional licensing costs, right? Mm-hmm. And that's a really big deal, and that's one of the biggest things we noticed. Now, Balaji approaches a large part of the SMB space, right? Our blood is mostly made of SMB space, although we have quite a few enterprise players, and Veeam is certainly our lead backup solution here at Balaji. But there's a few things that I'd like to touch on because you mentioned deduplication and replication. These are usually enterprise words that are starting to permeate into the SMB world, right? And folks, if you're in the IT world and you're an SMB IT professional, then things like deduplication and the expense associated with it, it's changed a lot recently, right? Replication, usually that means you have to buy 2 storage arrays. I could tell you that Veeam has helped our customers a great deal just on the replication problem, right? SMB, that segment of SMB is starting to get into that growth stage where disaster recovery becomes a reality, where they need to be able to recover because there's a financial impact for not being available. However, they may not have the capital to invest in a set of storage appliances, right, in order to do some natural replication. One of the best things that we like to do with Veeam, and maybe you can sort of help us with that a little bit, is help customers gain exposure to the idea of offsite disaster recovery. And I'm not talking about the cloud necessarily, although we could talk about that all day. I'm talking about maybe a robo that you turn into a disaster recovery where they take the storage appliance that we're upgrading and turn that into a disaster recovery target, right?
Yep.
Tell me how replication deduplication can play into that value in the SMB space, and maybe even has some of this misconception that it's an enterprise-only solution.
Well, I like to say we're taking all these enterprise features and we're bringing them, to everybody, right? So, things that usually, were enterprise class, like you said, replication, deduplication, exchange recovery, Active Directory, SharePoint, all these different types of things are built into the product, right? I mean, they're just there. We don't charge extra for them. Our licensing is very straightforward. There's 3 editions. So I mean, that's it.
Right. I can think of a few that are a little more complicated than that.
You either get the standard or you get everything, and there's something in between. So, it's very straightforward. We don't charge extra for all these other things like a lot of other enterprise software does. But when we think about it from the small business standpoint, like you mentioned, hardware doesn't always match, right? So you want to be able to take a workload that's running on one and take it over to another that's maybe not the same, but it's good enough. And it's going to be good enough in a disaster recovery perspective, and it's good enough to deliver what we call availability. And when we talk about Veeam and even rebranded our suite to the Veeam Availability Suite, it's because that's really what we're delivering. Is we're delivering availability. It's not about backup, right? It's about
right. Veeam's not just a backup company, right? And that's probably a pretty important message for us to tell the viewers, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's about availability. At the end of the day, if something goes down, it's not did you back it up? It's when can it be available, right? Users don't ask you about the backup. They say when's it going to be back up online? When's this going to be available? And as all these new consumer technologies and online banking and everything else, I mean, people are now used to having things 24/7, right? There's no tolerance for downtime. So, it's really about being able to deliver that availability. And for a smaller customer to be able to do that without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, I think that's a key thing. Is wow, here's some software that didn't at the end of the day didn't cost us a whole lot. We used existing hardware, and we're able to drive same type of availability that customers are used to from cloud, from enterprises or even cloud-based solutions.
Maximizing value out of repurposing gear is probably one of the biggest advantages that creative solutions architects can do to help some of these SMB folks approach the business continuity problem, right? A lot of times, and those of you in the in the viewer audience probably understand this as well. Business continuity has always been expensive. Availability has always been a very expensive thing, right? Well, I don't know how many calls I've been on with customers where they say they want high availability, but a lot of times maybe not understand the cost of high availability. But when we're able to repurpose that old MSA or that old Power Vault or some old storage box and move that to that other office and maximize even some of the power deduplication, right? Can you tell me a little bit about the deduplication piece and how that might optimize the connectivity between sites so that this becomes a reality? Do I need dark fiber?
No, you don't. So one of the things we delivered in our version 7 is built-in WAN acceleration. We expanded on that in version 8, but there's deduplication and there's WAN acceleration.
Sure.
So when we talk about deduplication, it's really about block level deduplication. When you're backing up VMs, just dedupe them, right? So you store less data, take out any white space, don't back up the swap file, don't replicate the swap file, and dedupe so that you're storing less than what you have in production. So that's fairly common. But when it comes to WAN acceleration is really about, hey, if that data exists already over there, don't send it again. Right? So when we look at it from a WAN acceleration perspective, it's very easy to deploy. All you need is a Windows server on each side, and with some disk space, to act as the cache. So you have an immediate cache there on the WAN accelerator gateways, and then from a backup or even replication perspective, we have an infinite cache because those gateways can say, hey, I don't find it in my cache. Let me look here in this backup set. Maybe I have the data over here. So guess what I do? So I'm just going to take that block and I'm going to use it to rebuild this over here. So from a WAN acceleration perspective, right, it truly is what you would think WAN acceleration is. It's not just, hey, we've deduped the data so we can send less. We're going to send this chunk across the WAN, and it's WAN acceleration. Well, that's
a pretty big deal.
It is. It's a huge deal.
There's a lot of players out there that consider deduplication WAN optimization, and I guess you could argue.
You said it, WAN optimization. There's a big difference between WAN optimization and WAN acceleration.
Yeah, that's true too, right? There's a whole other suite of appliances we could purchase for that too. That's generally in the enterprise universe, right? So that's really the big deal. Veeam is certainly one of those vendors that does offer enterprise class solutions to the SMB world. That's a lot different than saying Veeam is an enterprise solution. It is an enterprise solution, but I don't have that 6-digit word called availability, right, in order to put Veeam in there. So at the tail end of our training today, you brought up some pretty cool stuff that Veeam's getting into now. And I asked the question to you as sort of to toy with you a little bit about, so what are you doing about workstations? What can you do about endpoints? Is there something that I can play with as an IT professional? Shockingly, you had an answer for that.
Yes.
So maybe you could take advantage of this forum to fill us in on that.
Yeah, so actually just yesterday, we made the full availability for our Veeam Veeam endpoint backup free beta. So it's in beta right now. It's available to anyone that goes to the Veeam site and give us your email address, and it's free. There's always going to be a free version of it, and it's designed to be installed on your Windows desktop or laptop, or Surface 3, if you have one of those. But it installs Simple configuration. It discovers what you have in terms of your volumes on the computer. It sees if you have an external USB drive plugged in, if you want to use that as a backup target, and then you answer just a few questions, and then it's there. It runs in the background based on a schedule. I have mine set so that every time I lock my computer, it backs up. So
free for IT professionals.
Free for IT professionals. Free for anyone, really.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good.
Yeah. So we say IT pros because that's who we're going to target.
Sure.
Does it mean that an IT pro can't install it on their parent's computer? No, it doesn't. We want you to do that.
Does it mean it requires an IT pro to install it?
No, it doesn't.
Or to set it up?
It doesn't.
Okay.
We're just not going to target the consumer market for this. So, our target in our passion at Veeam is about the IT pro. And, just like Fast SCP, way back when, this Veeam, here's another free utility, a free tool that provides a lot of use. And when you look at it from a recovery standpoint, we even include a very easy way to create a bootable USB key. And on that key, we include utilities. Like, let's say you need to reset the administrator password because you forgot it, the local administrator password. There's a utility on there that allows you to do that. If you need to inject additional drivers and those types of things, you can do that. So there's a lot of little things, in our endpoint product, even in the beta, that allow it to be even more powerful than what you might think.
That's cool. So targets for my backup, USB stick, external drive, cloud maybe, getting there.
Yeah, I don't want to say definitely on cloud, but one of the things we do have is Veeam Repositories.
Okay.
So it's not enabled in the beta yet. So if you're looking at it for the beta, it's not there yet. But when we have the GA release in the first part of 2015, you'll be able to set it up so that it writes to a Veeam backup repository. So if you've got a Veeam infrastructure set up and you've got some endpoints that you want to set up, and boom, and
that works, right? So so if you're a Veeam customer, and you have a Veeam solution, then you have a target for this endpoint solution. That's a big deal, right? I don't know of very many free backup solutions, especially that are going to be at the caliber that the Veeam solution will be, and isn't installing malware on my laptop, right?
Yeah, no malware.
Putting some super secret agent in there to take all my keystrokes, right? So that's really interesting stuff. I'm glad that to hear about this announcement. This is of yesterday, right?
Well, we announced it. We announced it at Veeam On. That was a big announcement back in Vegas in the fall, and that was one of our big announcements at Veeam On, and we did a sign up for early access to the beta. I think we had 18,000 people register for that.
Oh wow!
So what we did is we wanted to make sure we didn't overwhelm our email.
Right, sort of a back channel beta, right?
Yeah, so we released it in waves to those folks. We've got it out to everyone now. No major issues are being reported. And actually, if you actually go and register and download the beta, and you participate in feedback and giving us ideas or even finding bugs or anything like that, you have a chance to win a Surface Pro 3. So
that's cool.
We're actually I think we're giving away 6 Surface Pro 3s during the course of the beta program.
They're not easy to get.
No.
Do you already have them?
Oh, I love my Surface Pro 3. I love it. I got it at TechEd last year on discount, and I was like, I wasn't going to do it, and I did it, and it's one of the best decisions I did.
That's all. I'm glad to hear that. I've been sort of battling whether or not I want to get into that. So, as far as operating systems for endpoint, so 8.1 down to 7.
Yeah, Windows 7 and above.
Okay.
And then also Windows Server 2008 R2 and above.
Okay.
So
we can put it on a server.
It will work on a server, but you have to configure it on each server individually. It's not an enterprise physical backup or anything like that. But if you have a few remaining physical servers, and you're comfortable using this, understanding it's a free product.
Right. So this one comes with a little bit of an asterisk.
Yes. But it can back up a few remaining physical servers.
That's actually, Doug, that's a pretty big deal, right? One of the things about Veeam in the SMB market is that a lot of our SMB customers aren't 100% virtualized. They always have that, or usually have that one or two straggler, right? So this could be an option to help keep us from this backup solution sprawl issue that is an argument. Usually I feel empty, but usually we ask the question, really we need to get with the times here and virtualize everything. But that's great. So Where can someone pull this down? Where can they download it?
Well, if you go to veeam.com, you should be able to find it. But if not, I believe it's go.veeam.com/endpoint. So
Okay.
go.veeam.com/endpoint will take you to the landing page where you can put in your email to register, download the software, and then figure out how to get in there, win one of those Surface Pro 3s.
That's great. That's great. Well, I really appreciate you sharing the endpoint piece. It's probably one of the first things you're going to do this weekend. Yes, honey, I'm sorry. I'll probably be on my computer. It is the holidays. I understand that. So, Doug, is there anything else that you think is worth mentioning at this point? It's very rare we get you out here. I'm definitely, happy that we got you here. Yeah. Pretty well covered, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
I think so. So, I live down the road. So if you ever want me back, I'm more than happy to be
We'd be
here.
glad to have you. I look forward to it, folks. As you always know, we're very open to questions. So if you do have some questions, we're going to make sure that Doug pays attention to our YouTube channel. And if there's an opportunity, we'll make sure that we get some response to some of the questions that you might have about Veeam, about Veeam's replication or deduplication, some of the enterprise features that you can get that really can approach the SMB marketplace, and even this endpoint piece, which I'm kind of excited to try out. So until then, folks, have a great holiday week. I appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you on the WireSide.